21 candidates are now qualified for the first Democratic debates held later this month, but there are only 20 spots. The DNC will eliminate one candidate by either polling results or hip-hop dance-off.
Hey. President Trump met with Queen Elizabeth this week. Things got awkward when they both waited for the other one to bow.
Queen Elizabeth gifted President Trump a rare book by Winston Churchill. Out of habit, he asked her to spank him with it.
Oh my God.
IHOP is introducing a pancake burger to the menu. Thanks, but I don't like healthy food, said President Trump.
And finally, the Navy says they were asked to minimize visibility of the USS McCain during President Trump's visit to Japan. Specifically, they were asked to treat the USS McCain like President Trump's tax returns. The Trump Report starts now. Welcome to the Trump Report. Yes, it is I, Christian Bladt, joined, as always, by Chelsea Galicia.
Hi there.
And Tamra Brown.
How's everyone doing?
On assignment, Scott. I almost called him Scott Brown. I just put the two of you together. Sorry.
Or our Scott Brown?
Our Scott Brown, might have thought of him too, probably in the chat, but he's on assignment, and I didn't understand his message at all. I don't know what you guys. Grandma's on the roof. I don't know what that means. That must be some like Florida slang that I don't understand. We'll find out next week. We'll get all your answers on that. So I wanted to start off with President Trump taking a trip across the pond. Starting off, I mean, well, I guess even before he got there, he referred to Meghan Markle as nasty. But not in the Janet Jackson way, because obviously that would be a sign of respect.
That one.
Well, I wasn't even sure you'd get it.
What? You're looking
You're
at
of a certain age.
Janet
You're
fan.
a certain age. You might not know. You might not know that song. You might not know the Control album. You might be Rhythm Nation onward. I don't know you.
Actually, that just shows you don't know me at all.
I probably don't.
Yeah.
But anyway, here we are talking
Janet
about.
is my jam.
Well, excuse me, Miss Galicia, if you're nasty. And I think that a lot of times, President Trump is able to say like, well, that it's not true, fake news. He says those things a lot. And a lot of times he's like, well, I don't know if that's really fake news. But he did actually call her that. And I don't think it's a huge thing for him to say. I mean, she said nasty things about him. It's fine.
She did? Just by saying that is that nasty to call somebody racist?
So here's the thing.
I love that we have a Janet
He
visual.
feels that what she said was nasty. He's entitled to that opinion. He can express that. Just own up to it if you think that that's the case. I mean, she doesn't want to meet you.
Well,
Harry probably doesn't
all
want to meet
I
her.
heard was that she didn't want to meet with him. So what did she say?
So he referred to her as nasty in an interview probably about a year ago. Just that, or I think the interviewer asked, "Hey, she said these things about a year ago." That's what it was. Like, oh, I hadn't heard that. I didn't know she was so nasty.
But we don't know what she said?
I mean, I don't have it in front of me because
and misogynistic.
Yeah, so
I believe it was both of those or one of those.
Well, neither, and you can feel how you want about those things. I'm pretty sure that President Trump wouldn't consider himself those things. So that the point is that he can say it. Just own up to it. For a guy who runs his mouth on Twitter. He's very thin-skinned. He's very quick to walk things back. Just own up to it. He's like, yeah, I don't like her. I mean,
Is this surprising to you that he hasn't, owned up to anything? And I think that these kinds of little lies where we know he called her that. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. There is there audio or is there visual tape of
I
him
only read
saying
it. I only read it. So
Okay.
that's where you always run into the I didn't say it, so you can get away with that. You can say like that's not what I told them, and I don't know. I think that most reporters, if they print a direct quote from the president, I'm going to just assume he said it, or maybe they didn't capitalize something correctly. But I feel like that's
I think
that's
a
fairly
more
accurate.
blatant example of him just outright lying is him denying that there were protesters in London. He didn't.
Do you think he was lying, or is he delusional and he just thought that those were fans?
What I'm saying is him saying that is fake news, claiming he said it is fake news that there are protesters in London. I didn't see any of that.
Wait.
That is a denial, and it's also a lie.
Christian, would you prefer to have a president who lies or who is delusional? Is one better than the other?
I think delusional is better, because then we can all just drink the absinthe and just kind of sit back and let it all wash over us. Lying, That's calculated. Delusional is lying is Bill Clinton. Delusional is Joe Biden. So I mean that's just
Well, this opened up another can of worms that I did not anticipate at all.
Christian, always holding white men's feet to the fire.
I always hold. It was mostly a joke, just how he's a little. Joe Biden, he's not the sharpest tack in the pack, is what I'm saying.
Is he less sharp than Trump?
Oh, I don't. I wouldn't even begin to characterize that. I would say that that's probably not the case. But I wanted to try and find that quote. But so Tamra, I feel like you were trying to get a couple things in, and we strong armed.
So sorry about that.
We strong armed our way into it.
As to know whether Christian believes a liar or a delusional president.
We usually get both. I think probably.
I think they're hand in hand.
Yeah.
Especially with Trump.
Yeah. No. I think I could certainly understand that. Well, what do you think, Chelsea? Do you want the liar more than delusional?
That's there's not even like a worse of the lesser of two evils in this situation. Neither. And you can even say, well, all politicians lie, but there are degrees of lies. So is it best to have a president who is delusional or lies to the degree that Trump does? I don't know.
What is a lie Obama told?
You can keep your doctor.
That you can keep your doctor. That he was going to close Guantanamo Bay the first week he was in office. I think that maybe he believed that at the time, but he sure didn't work hard to that.
That's the other thing. Is a lie really a lie when you believe it when you said it? And I think there is a term for this, and I can't remember what it was, but I do think it makes somebody a little less culpable when they truly and honestly and reasonably believe.
But I think that excuses all of Trump's lies, because I do think he believes what he's saying. I do think he believes that there were no protesters in London.
But that's what I was getting at. Yeah, that's what I said. Reasonable.
Think he doesn't. He sees that there's a big crowd, and he's like, "This is great. It's like I'm in Oklahoma."
Okay, but that's not a reasonable belief that there were no protesters, or his lies are not reasonable beliefs.
So I have a little bit more illumination on what we were talking about before. So in an interview with the British tabloid The Sun, which, by the way, let's be honest, when you're talking about fake news, the newspaper that has a topless woman on page 3 every day might be the one.
But how do you know that there's a topless woman on page 3?
Everyone knows that.
Really? Did you? I have no idea about
everyone who's worldly and reads a sophisticated magazine.
I know The Sun is an incredible source, but I didn't know that there was a topless woman on.
Now I'll start reading it.
I just know that
right, thank you. How many years have I known you? This is the smartest thing you've ever said. Now you're going to start reading it. So, let's see. So he was, President Trump was being interviewed by The Sun, and he was confronted with Meghan Markle's 2016 comment that it's not even as bad as I thought it was, that she would move to Canada if he won the presidency. And then Trump said, and this is on audio tape, I didn't know she was that nasty, that she would move to Canada. A lot of people said they would move to Canada. By the way, no one who said they were going to move to Canada has moved to Canada.
That's not true. I know somebody that has.
Okay, so none of the famous people. I'm just assuming you don't know famous people. But no,
and also, this is before she was married to Prince Harry. So this is before This clarifies a lot, because the royal family cannot show any sort of opinion of this sort of nature. There was this video that went viral of Camilla winking behind President Trump's back, and I'm sure she's going to get a lot of flack for that amongst the
I didn't see the wink.
royal. Yeah.
Well, this is before she was a duchess.
They're not. Yeah, exactly. So
and she was like, "Oh, that actress from Suits doesn't like him."
Yes.
So I don't think it mattered.
Yes.
Then. Yeah.
But had she said anything now, that would have been a huge issue within royal protocol. So
I would love her so much if she did say something.
Yeah.
Well,
I think probably the British people would love her actually more.
Yeah.
I think when you marry into that family, and I think you kind of
sell
know
your tongue.
That to some, and I think that's why they're like moving out to the countryside or whatever.
Not to a certain degree, to a full degree.
Yeah.
Like they're not allowed to show
that's
any
what I mean.
political
So that's why
bias
she's
whatsoever.
just like they're just kind of staying out of it, and Harry's just like whatever. I've had enough of this family. But here this feeds into the delusion, because President Trump says I wasn't referring to she's nasty. I said she was nasty about me. And essentially, I didn't know she was nasty about me. oh, well, see, there you go. But see, that's like kind of like delusional double talk where you can talk yourself into like, yeah, well, see, I didn't say it. I just said she was nasty about me. I just left out the about me part.
Man, I mean, this is really riveting, but I wonder, when do we get to the part about where 900 children or people, migrants, were found crammed in a room designed for 125 people? I mean, so much talk of this Meghan Markle nasty, okay, that's great, all and interesting. But I think this is where the president's really great. I mean, I don't know if he consciously said, you know what, I'm going to talk crap about Meghan Markle so that people will ignore the fact that my administration has treated human beings worse than,
Southwest Airlines?
Oh, Jesus, Christian.
Like worse than?
No.
Spirit Airlines.
Thank you, Tamra. I'm glad somebody can be on my
I
board.
have had good experiences on both, and I doubt that either of those are a very good comparison to what these migrants have gone through.
Well,
and to make light of it,
Galicia, of course. Spirit
I'm so
Airlines.
glad that there
I've
are
never-
some people to keep things light, but like on the inside, I'm like, this isn't funny.
Yeah.
I mean, what you're talking about isn't funny, but you know what wasn't funny either was I've never had to ride in a cattle car because I've been on Spirit Airlines because I feel like I know what it's like. But would you like to talk about that instead?
I mean,
of-
I think it's newsworthy, right? I think it's Trump related.
Yeah.
I mean,
Instead of.
Well, instead of, I did want to talk about what I like about Queen Elizabeth is so this is the 11th president she's met with, and at this point it's almost like, oh, I've got like the whole set. I don't want to miss out on the last one. I think it's just it's obviously it's a different era. It's a different mentality because she's the Queen of England. She's probably just knows she has to put on a show and be nice to everybody, but I think that, for all the things he says, she's just like, oh yeah, well, I'm gonna wear the big hat, still gonna meet you. And Chelsea showed me a very funny photo, which I should have sent to Ryan before we got started, because she was dressed like the Queen of England, and President Trump had on a Burger King hat.
and
So
the Burger King
he
takeout
did
bag.
have, yeah. Well, that was his leftovers, But
I mean, it's pretty fitting, and
what?
I mean, if anybody has any shame, pretty embarrassing that that's like an accurate depiction of your president.
I've worn one of those crowns. I mean,
Hopefully to make your children laugh, but that one was.
I mean, I was a child at the time, but I've still worn them. I mean, I think I'm going to say I look pretty good at it. But
of course.
Tamra, what does this trip tell you about the relationship with the U.S. and the U.K.? Are they just gonna kind of humor us, whatever we trot out there? You think that they're just too polite?
Well, I think this is just what you're saying. Like, she's met with every president. She's just sticking to tradition, which is what they do. And also in showing no bias, she can't say, oh, here's the first president in 11 that I am not in agreement with, because I'm sure there were other presidents that she probably would have rather to not have met with. But we should agree. I agree with Chelsea. Maybe we should move on to more harder news and talk about the migrants or I don't know, whatever you wanted to talk about.
So you thought that you sat down with Chuck Todd on Meet the Press? You thought that that's what this was right here? No, we will definitely get to that. I do want to. There are a couple more stories about this that I did want to talk about.
Okay.
We'll definitely talk about it. I'm not saying we're not going to talk about it. I'm just saying we're not talking about it right now, because the point I wanted to get to immediately after Meghan Markle is that was hardly the only person that he insulted. He insulted the mayor of London, and I like that.
Which they have a history
Yeah.
of
That goes back pretty far.
slinging
Yeah.
insults.
But I like that even the super polite British family is like, all right, you know what? We're just going to have Prince Andrew go golfing with him and kind of basically be his handler. I thought that was the most interesting thing about it. Because so even this, super polite family who is supposed to be, I don't know, the pinnacle of tradition and manners and circumstance and all that stuff, they're just like, yeah, but I mean, we don't want to actually hang out with them. So like, I don't know how Prince Andrew got to draw the short straw there, but I guess it's because President Trump spends so much time golfing, which I don't know if you remember, but that was something that one side of the political spectrum used to say that President Obama spent too much time golfing. I do remember hearing that a lot. But I guess it doesn't matter.
This president spends
more
much
time.
more
No,
time.
you don't hear that though.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
No, I'm just.
I mean, that's why we are here, to remind people of the truth.
But how much time everyone spends playing golf? I'm at 0 minutes.
Me too.
You let us know in the chat. But I think that the interesting thing, I guess, is, we were talking about Meghan Markle shouldn't be, giving opinions now.
Oh, no, I do think she should be.
Well, their belief is that she shouldn't be. And President Trump is a guest in their country. I mean, just... what he's saying about, so he's saying like, Brexit's going to, I almost said breakfast. Breakfast is a great idea. I'm going to go to I'll die on that hill. Breakfast is always a great idea. The UK should support breakfast. I support breakfast. But he was saying that Brexit is something that would really be tremendous for them. And it's just like, so that would be like if the prime minister came over and talked about, how dumb it is to spend money on the wall. I mean, that's like, not literally, but that's fairly close to what he's doing.
It's none of his business.
Right, but I guess that's, to even pose a question about, has he any shame about that is hardly.
Well, I mean, he's supporting what the people have said that they wanted, and I wonder if any small part of the reason why, besides tradition, they extended all this pomp and circumstance to President Trump is if they feel a little bit vulnerable because of the very shaky, tumultuous Brexit situation, and that the United States is the #1 trading partner to the UK outside of Europe. So that they should make nice with the United States in case they leave the EU with no deal, then at least they have the US. I don't know if that has any bearing on the Queen's decision to go over the top with how welcoming she is. But for some reason, I want to believe it has something to do with it, because if the country was at its, strongest, I doubt that they would sort of cower to this level. And I understand that people have been criticizing that, why are people so critical of President Trump when this same queen welcomes, authoritarians from other countries? Nobody's as vocally critical as when, Saudi Arabia comes to visit.
Right. Well, my thinking is the way to get a state dinner in the United Kingdom is to ask. And then they just can't say no because they're like, oh, well, they did ask.
You should try and
probably do it.
Let us know how that goes.
Oh, I should. Well, I'm not I mean, if you're head of state, you should ask. I mean, I can't ask. I mean, maybe Chuck Todd could get back to him. Maybe he could get a sit down with the Queen. So we always hear these numbers and things. The Trump family visit to the UK will cost U.S. taxpayers $3.5 million. I can't think of anything that money would be well spent on. That would be better.
Which is pocket change in the scheme of what we spend.
Well, I mean, that would pay for like.
I'm cringing on the inside.
Wouldn't that pay for like 8 bricks in the wall? You know what I mean? So it's like, I guess it's not that much at this
how
point.
many teachers' salary could be paid with that?
Teachers? Wait, we pay teachers? No, that's going to change after 2020, I think. You don't think that's funny?
Did you guys vote yes on EE today?
Uh-oh.
I don't.
What? I missed something.
No,
voting day.
it's only if you're in the city of Los Angeles.
Oh, are
and
you
some of us
outside
are
of-
not.
okay.
Yes. I'm on my own island, the island of misfit toys, and we don't vote there. I don't quite know what Ryan's
800 students' tuition
is
could
that
be paid for, perhaps with 3.5 million.
I was just saying
3.5 million. No, now I
That
understand.
sounds like a good
I could take care of
estimate.
my student loans pretty well.
There you go.
Well,
love that.
and that could be to a fine institution like University of Delaware.
See, we're the new fleecing of America. We have replaced Tom Brokaw in capturing what is the outrageous spending of this country and what we could better do with it. That's what you can count on us for here at the Trump Report.
One of the other things we can count on is asking the important questions of, do you think, Tamra, that at any point the base, and I'm talking about the evangelical pocket of the base, is going to come to terms with the fact that President Trump is not one of them. You know, there was this this day of prayer that was supposed called for by Franklin Graham on Sunday, that you're supposed to pray for President Trump against all of his enemies. And President Trump makes an appearance at this church in D.C. that I think he's been to once before, and I mean once before. But he came from the golf course, and his hair was wet, and I'm using air quotes, but come on, it's right off the golf course. Do you think that's water?
Can somebody explain to me how you sweat on the golf course? I mean, unless was it really hot?
It's Washington D.C. in June.
a lot of walking.
It's very humid, actually. In all honesty,
okay. Well,
it's not that hard. Yeah, I know you do only swing a golf club once in a while.
Well, humidity that explains
yeah,
it.
you definitely can get sweaty from that. But you know, and he took his hat off when he was there, which I thought was like, all right, you know, he's wearing golf shoes in church. So that goes sort of just that circles back to my question, Tamra. Do you think that there could be a sizable number of evangelicals who are like, I can't vote for a Democrat because of the things that they believe in, but I also can't vote for this guy because he's taking us for granted that we're going to...
Nope. Evangelicals will vote for Trump no matter what because they're voting pro-life is probably their number one concern. And what else after pro-life?
Immigration.
It's a little bit of a list. But
Yeah, they probably,
and,
you know...
Ryan has gotten a photo...
not too involved in the immigration, but they know where their party lies on
Right.
it, so they know he's voting in their favor supposedly on that. So yeah, I think evangelicals matter
I'm
what.
going to say that for those that are watching on YouTube, you can see an image of President Trump, shaking hands with his pastor. Which, by the way, the pastor's in short sleeves, so all of a sudden I'm starting to think that my argument doesn't hold any water. I actually think he looks so much better with his hair slicked like this, like the Gordon Gekko Wall Street look. Look, did I say he looks good? No, I said he looks better.
Okay. Well, then I can agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, because his hair looks normal. Whatever he does with his hair is not normal. But
I would go so far as to say that evangelicals are used to looking the other way when it comes to people that they are supposed to respect falling in the principal of the Catholic high school in Louisiana that went to a strip club while he was supposed to be he was on a field trip with his students.
But he didn't bring the kids, by the way.
He didn't
Tamra.
bring the kids.
Yeah.
No, this was when the kids were safely in their hotel room.
Yeah.
He went to a strip club, but I'm saying this is just one example of many, many times when evangelicals have had to turn a blind eye and say, yes, okay, I don't support that, but in the grand scheme of things, this is the person.
I think
for
they
me.
say that we all sin, and so that justifies it.
And by the way, Tamra,
correct me if I'm wrong. But
we
I
call
believe-
them gentlemen's clubs because we behave like gentlemen there. But
It's-
thank you. Yes, Ryan understands.
Oh, I'm nothing against strip clubs, gentlemen clubs whatsoever. I'm to each his own, but I'm just saying that they're used to, President Trump paid for a porn star, paid off a porn star. He has been married multiple times. All of this, many indiscretions and awful things that he said on record, and it's easy for them to turn a blind eye as long as he's going to put a Republican conservative justices on the bench to overturn Roe v. Wade.
Now, this is completely a hypothetical. There's no reporting that indicates that this is something that's that we're going to hear. Do you think, Chelsea, that you could at least start to see some movement amongst evangelicals if there was at least very credible proof that President Trump, in his pre-president days as a younger man about New York, paid for and or multiple abortions? Do you think that that's something that that they would actually have to stop and think a little bit more clearly on?
I think there are some people that will say we've all sinned, and they would justify it like that because what he believes that what they believe he can do for them outweighs his violations of the doctrine that they claim to hold so dear. I am heartened by reading some data that shows that much of his base is sort of deteriorating, and that may be actually willing to vote for a Democrat in 2020, which has me rethinking even about who might be the smarter candidate to support, because I didn't know until I read this one article, and I have to double check to see if the data is correct. But one of the data looked at where did the votes come from in 2018. Is it people who never voted for Trump that voted Democrat? Is it new voters that came out to vote? What part of it is it voters that voted for Trump that turned in 2018, and that there is a significant chunk of people that voted for Trump in 2016 that then turned around and vote Democrat in the midterms in 2018. So if there really is a significant part of the base that is willing to look for somebody else to vote for, then perhaps, maybe, sort of, lots of like asterisks to this, a more moderate candidate would work. Although I still can't get over the idea that many Trump supporters were people who were angry at the establishment enough to vote for Trump, and that they would really resonate more with like a Bernie Elizabeth Warren. So there's still more sort of research for me to do on this, but I am heartened that at least some of the base, evangelical or not, are looking for other people to vote for.
Sure, and I guess once we have the data on 2018, it'd probably be easier to process. For example, how many absentee ballots have a Moscow postmark? That could be something that you always take into consideration there. Well, Chelsea, you have a couple of things that you wanted to talk about, but one is the one you brought up on the show. So because we have limited time, I wanted to let you bring it up, the migrant issue that you referenced earlier.
Right, and I don't know what more there is to talk about, other than to talk about it that 900 human beings stuffed in an area designed for 125 people should be horrifying. I don't know if it should be horrifying. I think it just is to people. And
I think what you're saying
attention.
is there should be more outrage about it. I think people that are aware of it
we've
can
got
be
a
horrified.
little bit of outrage fatigue, I think, but I think that we should still talk about it. We don't, I believe, need to be outraged to point out all of the outrageous things that are still happening. I mean, we are so almost numb to these big major events by now that we had the largest mass shooting in our country this year, and we haven't talked about it. Most media that I have seen is talking about the UK trip. Very little talk about the 12 people that died in Virginia Beach. So we're becoming, I think, too numb and too normalized to this really, hopefully unnormal circumstances. And I hope that enough of us can keep our wits about us to keep talking about the real issues, even though it's so easy to get distracted by some of the more fun things,
palatable or easier to wrap your brain around.
Right, or like, did he or did he not call Meghan Markle nasty? Like that kind of can be fun, but let's do that for like 5 seconds, and then I'm the serious one here, and we have balance on the show by having two comedians here to balance out the very serious nature that I bring to the show. But I think, where is everybody talking about it? Is there a reason why nobody is?
Well, I don't think it's in reference to this issue in particular, but one of the other things I wanted to talk about, Tamra, I was reading earlier today that it's sort of a two-pronged thing. So CNN's primetime ratings are down 16%, and their overall entire day ratings are down 9% from this exact month last year. I saw that Rachel Maddow's show is down from last year, and I'm just starting to wonder if, I don't think that this means people are coming around on President Trump, but I think even if they don't like him, I think they might be tired of just how much they have to hear about him, and I think it might just be exhausting. And I think it's a dangerous place to be in with a presidential election being next year. But do you think that it's entirely possible that people don't feel any differently about him? They just don't want to hear about it anymore, and that could feed into a story like the one you're talking about, not getting focused on as much.
Yeah, and I also think that when you watch CNN, even though I think for the most part they are giving a a true narrative, especially like Jake Tapper, or they're giving a true non-biased narrative most of the time. But because so much of that is pointing out things like Trump denying that there are protesters in London when there's clear video that there are. So that looks like they are attacking him when they're just reporting neutral news.
They're getting roped into the topics that Trump wants to talk about.
Yeah,
and I think if they were smarter, they would report on it for like 5 seconds and then get back to the more important stories. They might say, well, Trump's antics are what gets ratings, but actually, if you're saying that ratings are down and they go back to being more of a real news outlet, both them and MSNBC, and we hear less about Trump's outrageous
sensationalized
antics.
whatever thing he tweeted.
Right, I mean,
I think if the media had integrity from 2016, they would have just ignored his tweets. Just ignore the tweets.
Or I mean, you just like it's on a ticker, but then like move on. I mean, I now the extent of my CNN watching is at the gym. Every couple of minutes, I'll like check in, but most of the time that I'm at the gym, which is like over hour and a half, it'll be like. I'm not working out the whole time. I'm with my. He's like doing most. Is that they're on the same topic, which. And it's being sliced and diced 42 different ways.
Yeah.
About stuff that, in the scheme of things, doesn't feel very important to me.
Yeah, I mean, I used to like when headline news really was headline news. I know the channel's actually called HLN now because it's not headline. And it was just like if you watched that for half an hour, you were going to get like just very little about a bunch of things. And now it seems like if you watch CNN for an hour, it could be the same 2 stories or sometimes the same 1 story. And it's not like... a shooting or an earthquake. It's just, it's just like here's what Mueller said in front of a podium today.
People magazine. It's just turning into People magazine. It's like they are leaning towards more human interests than.
And this is where actually Fox is actually got something ahead of CNN and MSN. They keep things moving. They cover a whole lot of things, which then I can understand why people feel that they're actually getting news there because they cover many more topics.
Well, to bring it all full circle, that was one of President Trump's complaints when he got to the UK was that he was not able to watch Fox News. I think that, thank you, Ryan. I'm glad you understand. So we only have a couple of minutes, but do you want to at least talk a little bit about the possible superhero team-up crossover between Ted Cruz and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez?
Yes. Now, this is the kind of story that is really exciting. So as far as I understand, this was a deal that came about over Twitter where AOC said, let's do something where we prevent Congress people from becoming lobbyists after their term, because that is like a go-to gig. Some outrageous percentage of former Congress people and senators then make their way over to be a lobbyist and then use their influence for, for non-democratic, we'll call them, ideals. And so AOC.
And when you say non-democratic, do you mean lowercase d?
I'm moneyed interest, really, right?
Okay.
Right? The people, the groups, the industries, the companies that can afford these lobbyists then have a louder voice in Congress because these former congressmen and women have relationships with people on the Hill and then can use that in order to benefit the interests that they represent. So AOC put it out to Ted Cruz, let's put something like this out there. And she made sure to say, there's no squeezing in any other kind of hidden deals into this. Let's do just a clean bill. And he said, via tweet, you're on. So this is very exciting. I don't know why I'm the only one celebrating this. I mean, who knows how far it will actually go. But I feel that the sentiment of 2 people that are so... on the
broadly
opposite ends of the political spectrum can find something extremely worthwhile. And some people might see, okay, well, what is it, a big deal if you prevent Congress people from becoming lobbyists? But if people that really understand what is most threatening to our democracy Sure, Russia's got something to do with it, but we were undermining our own democracy probably before Russia started getting involved by having these kind of corrupt legal abilities for people to influence politicians and all of our politics that have louder voices than the American people with just regular funds. So it is a big deal. It's not a silver bullet that's going to clean up all the corruption, but this is one of the big things, closing the revolving door between Congress and lobbyists that will help restore our democracy.
Tamra, how likely do you think it is that following the tweet from Ted Cruz that says you're on, that anything at all ever happens with this again? I know I'm literally raining on your parade, but
Let me get my umbrella out.
Yeah.
How likely?
Yeah, how likely something more happens? And let's not count more tweets.
I think
more
it's
tweets
likely that he'll grow more facial hair. That's what's most likely. And I think it is less likely that, anything will actually come of this. But I do also cheer the sentiment.
If we talk about it.
Yeah.
Sure.
If the American people show that they give a damn about it.
Mm-hmm.
If we all stay silent, and because we don't know, it's not as interesting as name calling or whatever, then you're right, nothing will happen. The only way it will gain momentum is if enough of us are loud about it. We have to be able to drown out the voices of the lobbyists who really don't like this at all. And so we have to be extra loud because there are people that prefer us to be silent and they pay to be louder. So nothing is going to happen because this is largely the sentiment. What's going to happen? It's because it takes us being really loud about it to make something happen.
Yeah, and I think that you would get, sort of we get the optics attached to, like, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ted Cruz, people that are, obviously very far apart, but very divisive amongst the respective opposition, and I think if you got them to actually do something about really any issue, it's like, oh, well, look, this issue brought these two together.
Yeah, well, I found out about this from represent.us. So if you can go on their website and they have something where you can click on to show these members, she's a House member, he's a senator, that you support this, then it makes it more likely that something will happen about this. Perhaps maybe it'll be a 5-minute segment on CNN or Fox News. Probably not Fox News, but or maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm not giving them credit.
Depends on who's willing to do the interview about it.
But this conversation has to get started or else it will die. You're right.
Represent.us.
To your point, if Ted Cruz and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez were willing to appear together...
By the way, the shortest name and the longest name.
This is a great point. 6 letters and 20? But they would if they would do like the Sunday shows together, the two of them. You'd get people talking about it.
Hand in hand.
Okay, well now you took it too far.
All right, fine.
And you'd have to make sure the curtains are closed because I do believe Ted Cruz would burst into flames if sunlight touches anywhere on his skin. I think I've seen that. I think President Trump said that during the primaries, that he's actually Dracula and he killed Castro. I think that's what I might be wrong. Don't ever hold me to anything that I say on this show. But
fair enough.
We are out of time, but I do want to give a Storage Yard resident commenting on something we were talking about earlier. He points out you can have a religious experience at a strip club. So thank you, Storage Yard resident. I appreciate you saying.
I agree.
Yeah.
No disagreement there.
So thank you, Storage Yard resident, who never misses a show. But
Thank you for that.
We will not miss our next show. We'll be back Tuesday at 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern. Until then, Tamra, where do people find you?
Hey Tamra _ on Twitter.
And Chelsea, where do people find you?
At Chelsea Galicia.
You can find me at Christian DMZ on Twitter and Instagram. And a little later on tonight at 9 Pacific here on AfterBuzz TV, it will be the 5th and final part of our Chernobyl after show. So it'll make you feel really good about the way government can work.
Warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But until then, we will see you next week.
Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV. The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.